Smallville. Well, I'm sorry I mentioned the frog.
Oh, not my favorite movie. If you don't know that already. It's not scary. Well, thank you all for being here.
So how are you?
I'm good. This is a fun show. It's always nice when you can walk to work. You know, being able to stay at the hotel and just coming down to the table, it does feel more, I don't know, it's like seeing all you guys walk, when I'm walking in and out around the casino, it's just like, hey, what's up? You know, everybody's really cool. A couple people know, but, you know. That's
Some people are like, who is that guy?
Yeah, exactly.
And you have a phone in your bathroom. How does that feel?
With a phone in my bathroom?
Yeah. Anyone saying it? There's a phone in the bathroom. I don't know if you know.
Next to the toilet.
In the toilet.
I guess I was looking down. I wasn't looking up. I didn't notice that. But I will. That's the first thing I'm going to look for when I get back to my room. That's for sure.
If they didn't give you one, I would complain.
I'm trying to think of how I would use that phone for.
In case you fall and you can't get up.
Oh, there you go.
Get stuck.
Yeah.
I need some room service.
Yeah.
Pick me up off the floor.
Yeah, but it's also like, I'd like to order. Like, how does that work? I'd be too embarrassed.
I haven't used it. So
If you run out of toilet paper.
Oh, there you go.
Could someone bring up like 3 rolls, please?
And
All right,
then you
sir.
gotta answer the door, and then, yeah, sorry. It's a whole rabbit hole.
They have a key, they can get in.
That's true.
So yes, please come in and hand it to me through the sliding door. So anyway, let's move on from this wonderful hotel. So growing up, a lot of people here wanted to be a particular superhero, a particular hero. Who did you want to be?
James Bond.
Yes.
Like the whole James Bond?
Oh yeah, I did everything I could. See, one of the cool things my mom did is when we were sick and we couldn't go to school, she'd go and get some VHS, tapes, I guess they call them. It's funny,
Yes.
I had to talk about them for a while, but you know what I'm talking about. And I don't know how, but she would give me James Bond movies, and so I would watch like 2 or 3 a day. And so that's who I was always sort of like.
And how old were you?
Oh, like 6? No, I don't know. I don't know how old I was, but as young as I can remember, I was watching James Bond.
Well, that's
Probably not appropriate in most cases, but
There's some risque stuff, but it's more the Sean Connery, not the Roger Moore.
yeah.
Or dry martini shaking, not that.
Exactly.
So, actually, obviously I did a bad Sean Connery impression, but you do some impressions.
No, I joke around. A lot of times on the podcast I do with Michael, we joke around. He does. I kind of just mimic Michael's impressions.
Okay. Once you get into doing impressions, and it's pretty much just.
I just kind of like when he does it, I just mimic him. I mean, that's actually what happened. But it's Keanu Reeves, who apparently was here yesterday.
Yes.
Anybody get to see him?
Day before
Friday.
yesterday.
Yeah, day before. Yeah, I didn't know he was here because I've actually met
That
him
was
before and I
last
wanted to
minute.
say hi.
It was like last minute
Yeah.
saying he's going to be here, and you had to be the first 100 people.
Oh,
or else you
really?
were getting in. Oh
He's
yeah.
playing
I
at
should-
the
And no
other
video,
hotel.
no photos.
Oh,
Yeah, they were
His
like,
band
if
was
you
at the other
take out
hotel.
your phone, you're kicked out. Like,
really?
But he was very cordial. Like he signed our stuff. They let us take a professional photo.
Oh, nice.
And then we left. But he was like, he wanted to talk. He like legit wanted to talk.
He did a really great episode on Michael Rosenbaum's, he does another podcast called Inside of You, and he brought Keanu Reeves on, and he forgot that he had Sweet November. I forget what poster it is behind Michael, but it's a movie that Keanu's in, and he forgot. And Keanu's like, did you put that there on purpose? And he's like, oh, I forgot. It's a really good interview. And I've met Keanu twice. He's such a sweet person. He's really great. But so you said you can come to these for only an hour and you can leave?
Well, if you
I'm
happen
gonna talk to
to
Mitch.
Only John
be,
Wick
if you happen
can.
to have like a band and you're going to be playing at the
So I gotta get a band first?
Yeah. Practice some songs, Well, it's all kinds of drama between casino. You don't want to do that.
That's right.
Well, speaking of the podcast, you've been rewatching
Mm-hmm.
Smallville episode by episode. Are there times it's not fun watching your performance and being like,
You know, I think it's, so much time has gone by that I can watch it and kind of be like, oh, it's good. Like, you did a good job right there. And there's a progression that I've been able to see in what I did. Especially in season 5, where you can see, especially with the addition of Lois, which allows Clark to kind of play more humor. Because he was never funny like before. You know what I mean? He was just too serious all the time. And I can see myself being looser and being a little more just effective for what the scene was asking, and growing up a little bit. So I think back in the day it was hard to watch, but now it's kind of just like, this sounds really weird, but sometimes I forget I even did the show. It's so long, you know what I mean? Like,
they'll remind you.
yeah, it's on my mind when I'm at these events, but it's not something that I think about. I mean, I can go months without thinking about the show. Yeah.
Wow. Some of these people can't.
No, I'm sorry. It's just a weird thing. I mean, you know, we all have, most of you probably have jobs. But like, you don't remember everything you did at work. In fact, you try to forget it half the time, so.
Very, very true. We do have a microphone over here, so if you have questions, there is nothing better than questions from you guys, so please line up here. I could talk to them all day, but you don't want to just hear that, so. And our first question.
There you go.
First of all, my name's Randy. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi, Randy.
This is a question that I'm always curious about. Assuming the tradition of your character, how did you find the character and make it your own? That's the question.
I kind of just, I made a point to keep it really simple and just make it about the scripts that I was reading about the character. I didn't do like a deep dive into the history of Superman, and I think that served the character because, for example, when Martian Manhunter came on the show, I actually have no idea who Martian Manhunter was. So in the scene, when he's telling me who he is, I'm learning. And you know what I mean? And I kind of did that on purpose. I didn't know who Doomsday was. You know what I mean? I didn't know that Jonathan was going to die. You know, I kind of, in some ways, protected myself. And then when I did Lucifer, I played a character who's actually 3 characters. And when I went in for the original meeting with Joe and LD created the show and I was talking to Joe, and he was like, so you start out as this guy Pierce, but you're actually Sinnerman. And I go, stop right there. I go, I don't need to know that yet. We're not there yet. And if I know it, so sometimes I try to protect myself from the information that my character doesn't know. And I even said at one point on Smallville, I'm like, don't tell me anything my character doesn't know. Because and that's also why when you watch the podcast with Michael, it's so funny because he never read a scene he was never in. So he has no idea what's happening in Smallville. And so when he sees things that happen, and he's like, what the f is this? Because he has no idea what happened. And it's kind of fun on the podcast for that. But it's a long-winded way of saying that you want to be selective about it. And then there's sometimes where you need to know more because also remember the show is shot out of order. And there are sometimes when I see things and I'm like, oh, actually if we'd done that scene first, this scene probably would have been different. And so you want to keep an eye on that sort of thing, because a lot of times what happens in television is they want to shoot the last scene first, which always bugged me. But I understand why, because then they have it, they can always end the episode, and then they can move around in between. But I think the endings would always be better if they were shot in order. But it's very expensive. Sorry, the long-winded answer, but yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Hey Tom, thanks for the photo op earlier.
Oh yeah, good to see you.
I had 2 questions. The first one is, when you were on Smallville and you first started out, did anyone sort of make you nervous or intimidate you on set? And then the second question is, when you did the Crisis, the live action show,
Yeah.
was it hesitant to come back and do it, or was it like an instant, I want to get back on and play the character again?
Well, for your first question, I was, and I probably appreciate it more now because I didn't know any better then. I think everybody knew how green I was, and everybody just helped me. Whether it was Schneider or Michael or even Kristen. I mean, in the audition for the I've told the story before, but in the actual audition that I did to get the role, they had already cast Kristen. And we were in a room half the size of this with 3 times as many people. Because it was like, we were gonna go shoot the next month, like it was happening very quickly. Her back was to everyone else. And there was a point in the graveyard scene where I just blanked on what my line was. And I kind of just stood there for a second, and she mouthed the word, she was like giving me the line. And then it clicked and we continued, and the head of the network after the audition came up and he goes, "That beat that you took." I swear to you. And he was like, "Oh, I mean," and I was like, "Mm-hmm." But my point is, Kristen didn't need to do that, you know, and we just had a really great environment on that set where we all wanted to make it better. We all wanted to support each other. And that also carried on to like our guest stars. Like, I was always like, "Thank you for being here." Because like, we need fresh blood, we need, you know, we need all that. So I never felt, I can't remember anybody, quote unquote, sabotaging anything on the show. If going back to your question a little bit. And then what was your second question?
For the Crisis on Infinite Earth
Oh,
TV
yeah.
show.
So they'd asked me to be on a couple of the other shows after Smallville, and I just never felt like the tone would, like, Clark doesn't like travel like that in a sense. Like if I showed up on Supergirl, it would just be ridiculous. You know, in my mind. But when I got a message, they were like, "Listen, we know you're going to say no, but just please read this scene. Just read it. You can say no, but please read it." So I read it, and I was like, "Man, this is good." And it was good because, like, I thought it was cool. I knew that the fans would think it was cool. You know what I mean? It was one scene. You got Lex in there, who's not Lex, and I was just like, "This is a good idea." And so it was a lot of fun to do. And we shot at the Kemp Farm with the crew that was shooting Batgirl. I think that was the name of the show. It never really took off. And they had never shot there before. And I remember kind of biting my tongue a little bit, like, "Maybe put the camera over there." Like, I've shot here before. You want it over there. And so it was kind of fun. And then having, you know, Erica be there. And I don't know if that's actually the Clark from Smallville because it's a multiverse. So you never know. And I don't know how he lost his powers. No one ever told me.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate
Yeah, thanks. Hello.
He kind of asked the questions I was going to ask.
All right, well, thanks for coming out. Next.
I just wanted to ask if you thought you as Clark Kent in that episode was like good for the fans, because I, for one,
It was one of the,
in the suit.
I know.
You're very 50-50 on whether you play
Well, the thing about the suit it was very clear to me when they let me read the script for Smallville that it was not a show about Superman. Like I remember feeling that, like in my bones. It was about a kid who's trying to figure out who he was, what his point of his life was going to be, what was he going to do with his life, you know, his status and his self-esteem. And so, most of you probably know this already, but I literally had in my contract that I would never put the suit on. And they tried, like episode 3. And I was like, off. Like, read the contract. Because once he put the suit on, everything's too easy. It's not that.
The show wouldn't have lasted.
It would never have lasted.
I watched that podcast.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, it would have never lasted as long as it did. And it's also why the show ended, because he did have to ascend to his next, you know, dimension, if you guys are into that stuff. But yeah, I do remember thinking the fans are gonna love this because it was such a good idea. Yeah.
Where's Michael?
He wasn't invited. That's the truth.
Did you see the movie that's kind of like Smallville with evil Brightburn?
No?
It's basic.
I've seen The Boys.
The Boys is very different. I recommend it, but not for children.
Jensen's on it. And they're doing a prequel now with him.
Yes.
Yeah, Jensen, your rival for the role, and then, your rival for Lena's affection on the show.
That's true.
He just kept on showing up as a rival. But no, Brightburn was actually it was basically Smallville, but the kid wasn't so nice. And,
Fun.
I would check it out. It might be
A
fun.
bully, a Clark bully?
It's almost a horror movie.
Oh. That's cool. It's almost like if Lex had powers.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah. And,
That's cool.
you know, it might be scarier than the fog.
Everything's scarier than
Just
the
saying, just saying.
Everything's scarier than the fog.
Sure.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is, we've seen a lot of actors like Michael Dorn and Paul Dano and Amy Jo Johnson take characters that they'd like to write their own comics of it. Is there a story like you would like to tell of Superman in comic form?
Huh.
So, like, do something like that?
I mean, that's a good idea. I don't have one personally, but we've been talking about it for a few years where Michael and I and Kristen and Erica and Laura, we all, and John Glover, we've all said, you know, it was sort of Michael's idea, I guess, but we want to do a Smallville comic book, an animated series, and then we would all voice the characters. And we've already got an artist and we have a poster and we haven't been able to share it yet, but like Lionel Luthor is like looming over everybody. It's like really cool, but we can't do anything without DC saying we can do it. And it's like they haven't given us a green light, but we're ready. And Alan Miles, who wrote Smallville, will want to write it, but it's like, it's not our property until they say we can do it. So yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, I see all the actors doing it, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
want to see something from you.
Well, and it's also like, that would be more of like a labor of love. You know, it's not going to make $1 billion, so the studio's kind of like, so, you know, maybe we can do not a GoFundMe because that's financial, but like a petition. We can petition Warner Brothers to let us do it. That'd be fun.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And Michael wouldn't have to shave his head.
that's right.
One of the selling points.
Absolutely.
Hi, Tom. My mom raised me on Smallville. You were like my childhood hero, so this is amazing.
I was your James Bond.
Yeah. So I had two questions, but the first was about the suit. You had to answer that.
Yeah.
The second is, I know towards like the end of the show, the later couple seasons, I saw your name in like writing and directing credits,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just curious because I'm planning on going into hopefully writing that type of stuff.
Mhm.
What was that process like going from actor to writer and director on the show?
I really liked it. For the record, I never wrote anything. I did direct and produce, but I can't write. It's just not something I've ever thought I was any good at. I can get notes, but I don't actually write. Being a part of everyday production, I was sort of had an inside path to information, but what I always wanted was I was always asking why things were the way they were, whether we were shooting at 3 o'clock in the morning or we were shooting out of order, like I said before. I was just always curious. I always wanted more information. And being able to have these great people and producers around me who would share information that a lot of times you don't want to give a lead actor because they'll take that information and kind of use it against production, or they can, and that you shouldn't. But I always felt like the more information I had about production, the better I could then execute what was being asked of me. And that then came into, it led to them allowing me to direct, and then really liking that. Because it's, one of the great things about directing is, as an actor, you're never really allowed to feel like any sense of accomplishment. Like they almost teach you in acting class, the minute you feel good about what you did, you're out of the moment. You know what I mean? So you're never really allowed to feel good about what you're doing. Like you know that, you know, sometimes you nail a scene and you're like, that was great, but there's never one way to do it. With directing, you can literally say, cool, we got it, moving on. And there's a sense of accomplishment to that. And having been on the show for, I think, 4 or 5 years before I directed, I had a shorthand with everybody. And one of the things that I realized in the first episode I directed is how differently I spoke to everybody. Like I would kind of yell at Michael, but I'd be like nice to Kristen. You know, because that was just, or, you know, or vice versa. And, you know, I knew the camera guys and I knew, you know what I mean? Like it was like bowling with the bumpers on the side in a lot of ways.
Gotcha.
And those guys, Glenn Winter, who went on to do many great things, he was our DP and he was very helpful. And it was just, again, there's a lot of great people around who all wanted to support and make the show better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, and quickly, I'll say that, think about it this way, like if it's acting, directing, producing, writing, they're like different languages. And the more you can speak those languages, the better you can communicate for your project. That's kind of the way I always saw it.
That's genius.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan's panel, he mentioned that they auditioned 400 people before they cast him as costume. Was there anything similar for you with like a search for Clark Kent and like they auditioned hundreds of people, or do you know anything about that process at all?
Well, it's a kind of a long story, but so what happened was I was auditioning a lot at that time, but I wasn't very good. I was very green, like, oh, someday he's gonna be, but I was very green. And they weren't releasing the script for Smallville, they were just auditioning people for certain scenes. And my manager at the time said that either means that they're not prepared or the show's not very good. So we never went in on the first round of auditions. And David Nutter, who directed the pilot, apparently they didn't find their Clark Kent, so they went back into the pile of who didn't come in. And David Nutter reached out personally to my manager and said, listen, we have a script, it's great. In fact, it's a great show, and if Tom wants to come in and sign an NDA, he can read the script. And so I did, and that's when, going back earlier, I realized it was a show about a kid in high school, it wasn't a show about Superman. And then literally I think I went in for my first audition, and that was with Kristen against Jensen. Beat him. We always joke about it. He's a great guy. He's hired me for Winchester's. And then I think the next day they brought me back for another round, like for other people, other executives. And then by the time I got home, they called and said I had it. So it was very quick for me, but David said that they had auditioned thousands of people. Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of Winchester, did they want you to shave your head at all? Because, your older self.
They didn't ask. I tried to get away with a mustache, like an actual, because I had a beard, and so I shaved everything but the mustache. And they were like, no, I was in the makeup trailer, and they were like, the makeup artist was like, I don't think they're gonna. And I'm like, let's just go to set, see what they think. I guess I thought I was like Magnum PI or something. And I got to set, and I talked to the creator on the phone, but this was the first time I met him, and it was the director of the episode. And so I'm like, hey guys, what's up? And they're all looking at me a little funny, and I'm like, I know, but think about the time period and this and that. And they're like, yeah, well, yeah. And then they were like, well, we'll give it some thought. And so the makeup artist and I get in the car to go back to the makeup trailer, and she gets a text, and she's like, yeah, they're not going for it. They didn't want to say it to my face, but they're like, no. Please.
So nice to meet you.
Hi.
I was just wondering if there was like an aspect of like the traditional Superman, like in the comics that you wish you could bring onto the show Smallville, or that you wish they didn't.
I always thought that we should have had Bruce Wayne pass through somehow. And in my mind's eye, it would have been really cool to see, like, you know how Clark like always got into the Luthor Mansion with no problem. But like if he had gone into like Lex's office and just as simple as Lex being like, good to meet you, Bruce, or I'll talk to you later, Bruce, and have him just walk out. I think that would have been cool. But the problem. One of the challenges we had is DC movies and DC television don't talk to each other. And it's very difficult as a television show to try to use, it's a big deal, even using the Superman soundtrack. But I think one of the most iconic scenes that I remember from Superman, I don't know if it's Superman 2 or 3, but when he loses his powers and he's in the diner and he gets beat up and then he goes back and...
Superman 2.
Is that Superman 2?
Yep.
I still remember that being cool. Like as a kid, being like, "That's cool, we did that," and went back and got the guy. So that hindsight's 20/20, but we could have ripped that scene off pretty easily, and that would have been fun. Thank you. Hi.
Pleasure to meet you, first of all.
Thank you.
I just want to know, out of curiosity, if you were able to play a Marvel character, who would you play?
Oh, Marvel's so much fun. I read this thing recently that. A lot of the Marvel comedy comes, like, it's sort of a 1940s and 50s mentality of the comedy that they do. And I love it, I watch all that stuff. I mean, Iron Man's pretty cool. Like, don't get me wrong, I love that movie. Thanos was cool. Christian Bale, that guy that he played was scary. And I don't know, Chris Pratt does such a good job, he's so entertaining. That world just offers so much more creativity, I think, than even some of the DC stuff, which is a little more rigid. But, I don't know who. It's tough because when people play characters like that so well, it's hard to think of anybody else. I mean, yeah, I don't know. That Loki guy's pretty cool. That's a funny character. You know, he gets to do a lot of things, and you kind of just want to slap him in the face all the time and tell him to snap out of it. And then, you know, obviously Thor is a lot of fun. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what they're going to do next, because, you know, I'm sure everybody's, you know, they kind of done it all, so to speak, in what we've all known to be the last 15 years, and like where they're going to go next. So we'll see.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I could kind of see was Wonder Man.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, he's not a huge. Well, a lot of people don't know who Yondu was, or you know,
No idea.
But
I'm very uninformed.
well, Michael Rooker's Yondu.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Mary Poppins, you. But no, Wonder Man's like a stuntman actor who is kind of like super powered, and you know.
Can somebody tweet about this?
Yeah.
How long is Wonder Man? That'd be funny at the table. Wonder Man and Smallville on the same table with the pictures. That'd be kind of silly.
That'd be kind of cool. Now,
Does he wear a suit?
he kind of, well,
Kinda has-
it's changed over the years.
Some
You
more
know,
crop top.
yeah. No problem. Well, that could be a thing. I did want to, we'll get to you in 1 second. I know you have a movie coming out soon.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, thank you. I forgot about it. October 11th. It's called Mafia Wars. I play a good cop doing bad things for a good reason. In Rome, we shot it in Rome a few years ago, and COVID kind of, you know, got in the way with the post-production and stuff. But they haven't told me where it's coming out, but they did say October 11th. And my next question was, how do you know when it's coming out, but you don't know where it's coming out? And they were just like, I was like, all right, fine. And I was like, can I tell people? And they said, yeah. I go, okay, so I'm going to tell people I got a movie coming out October 11th, but I don't know where to watch it. But it's fine. Yeah, thanks.
Is it based at all on the old Mafia Wars video game?
Not that I'm aware of. If there's similarities, I'm not aware of them. But basically, my character, he gets caught selling drugs in order to help his niece out for her surgery. And then the local police department in Rome kind of take him out of jail so that, but like they have to work for him to infiltrate the mafia, if that makes any sense. And then, you know, things happen. A lot of guns and running around, and it's fun.
Well, we'll look forward to that.
Thank you.
Sir.
First, as far as other comic book characters you've been playing, not Marvel, but if they did a live-action version of The Incredibles, I think you'd make a great Mr.
Oh, that'd be fun. I love those movies. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you've ever seen the other Superman like prequel story, Krypton, but I was wondering if you had, what are your thoughts on that?
I haven't seen it. It's the first I've heard of it, actually. Maybe I can play that character.
Unfortunately, it's no longer.
Oh, really?
It got canceled.
Oh. It was about Jor-El and stuff?
It was Jor-El and, yeah, Krypton beforehand.
That sounds boring. Sorry. Oh, that's JP.
That was my car.
Oh. No, I should have FaceTimed him to show him how many empty seats there were. Because he's not here, that's what I would say.
Well, my question's a two-part. First of all, do you think we maybe at some point now where we probably see you in maybe like another Superman show, not as like a Clark Kent, but maybe as like a mentor type character, sort of like what Christopher Reeve was,
Right.
possibly?
I mean, sure. I mean, listen, the fact that we had, you know, John Schneider on Smallville, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, that was awesome. It took 2 years before he told me, I remember one time he's like, you know, I used to be on a TV show. And I was like, I know. And he goes, you do? I go, yeah, of course. I watched every episode of it. Like, and he goes, how come you never said anything? I'm, what am I going to say? Like, I was nervous. Oh, that's JP again. I think he was moving the table. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of callbacks now. We had Helen Slater. We had so many people on Smallville, and them embracing that legacy, I think, is fun, and it's fun for the fans.
Yeah, then my next question, I know you are a father, so with your kids, have they ever watched stuff that you made and just cringe at some of the things you did?
No, well, I haven't seen cringe yet. maybe when they get older. But there was, I remember it was a couple years ago, I think my son was 2 or something, and we had checked into a hotel somewhere and literally like turned the TV on and Smallville was on. And my wife said, you know, his name's Thompson. He said, Thompson, who's that? And he looked at the TV, he looked at me, and he goes, that's Dada. And I was like, still got it. Still got it. You know, some of my other friends who are quote unquote famous with their kids are probably not. You know, I think some of them respect the work, or you know, they get jealous of the time that they have to spend away. But generally, children are not impressed with your performance, and they usually want to meet your famous friends. So we'll see. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Short, so I have to turn it down. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask, what was your experience like working when Christopher Reeve was able to be on Smallville?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was great, and I've said this before, and I mean it in the best way possible, because it sounds a little weird. But his energy was of that he wouldn't let you feel sorry for him, if that means anything.
Yeah.
And he was so creative given his situation. Very watchable, very funny. It's JP telling us we're done. Sorry, because we got to get back to the table. But yeah, he was just fun, and he was only supposed to be there for a few hours. In fact, I think we had 2 or 3 scenes with him, and we were going to film all his stuff so that he could leave if he had to, and then I would speak to somebody else for like my part of being in the scene, and he stayed for my part of the scene. In fact, if I remember correctly, his nurse eventually told him, we're leaving, or I'm going to call the police. And he said, there they go, telling me what to do again. And it was just, you know, it was just fun. And it was just such a pleasure to meet him. And I'm very honored that he had taken the time, obviously. I think it meant a lot to the fans, it meant a lot to me. Because, I mean, when somebody says Superman, that's what I think of. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, before you get another phone call.
He's coming to get me.
He's like, yeah, everyone else is doing an hour, but no, you're not.
Well, I'll see you guys at the table.
Good to see you.